it's Kayla, and welcome to my Booktube-A-Thon wrap-up. I cannot believe that Booktube-A-Thon 2018 is over. I feel like it just started yesterday. It's absolutely crazy. Today was the first time in a week that I woke up without an alarm that needed to be set, and that was such a wonderful thing. I read so many great books this week, some maybe not as great as others, but overall I had a wonderful Booktube-A-Thon experience. And also, as you can see, I'm wearing a Peter Pan tank top. I love it very much, but I thought it was appropriate considering that I finished my last book of Booktube-A-Thon and I completed all of the challenges! This is officially the very first Booktube-A-Thon where I've completed both all of the reading challenges and all of the video challenges. Proud does not begin to describe how I feel right now. It feels so good to accomplish something like this, and especially having such a great support system like the booktube community. I feel like there's nothing else like it out there, and it's just so special. And the funny thing is this Booktube-A-Thon, I had told myself before it even started that I wanted to be more relaxed and calm and not worry about trying to get all the challenges done and just, you know, have a good time. And I always do that in every other Booktube-A-Thon, but I feel like other times I've participated, I've been so focused on trying to accomplish the goals that I set. And it's so weird because this time I wasn't as worried about that, and that's when I completed all of the challenges. So I think it's safe to say that when you let go of all of the stress and you just decompress and just do what you love without having to care about what the outcome's gonna be, then that's when you're the most successful. And I think that's what I've learned this time around. And I feel like I always learn something different every Booktube-A-Thon, so that's just one. But honestly, we're all winners in my eyes, and I'm sure in yours, and it's just been great. And I know you want me to get into how my Booktube-A-Thon went, so let's get into my wrap-up. But first, I started off the week reading Lumberjanes Volumes 3 and 4 by Noelle Stevenson, and I love these. They're so cute. They're such a great middle grade graphic novel series. I gave them both 4 out of 5 stars. I read them both on the first day of Booktube-A-Thon. One or both complete the challenge of read a book that has something you've always wanted to do in it, being going to sleepaway camp, as I mentioned in my TBR video, and the other one would complete the challenge of read 7 books because that would be the extra book that I had to read. After that, on the same day, I also read Deadly Class Volume 6 by Rick Remender, and this was completing the challenge of read a book wearing the same hat the whole time. This one was also really good. It wasn't as great as other volumes I read in the series, so this was a solid 4 stars as well. So I read all 3 of those books on day 1, and I kind of got started into The Martian by Annie Weir, and I finished it a couple of days later, I believe on day 3 of Booktube-A-Thon. This was completing the challenge of read a book to movie adaptation, and I mentioned my feelings about this book earlier on when I was talking about it during the week, but I'm gonna get a little bit more into it, specifically comparing the book to the movie. Now, one thing I was pleasantly surprised about was that there were a lot of actors that I didn't know were in the movie and that I was familiar with, and I was really happy with that, including Sebastian Stan, Kate Mara, Donald Glover, Jessica Chastain, all wonderful, wonderful people, and it was really great to see them in the movie. Overall, I do think that the movie had a great depiction of this book and got the core of what it was. However, I do think that The Martian was a little bit better in my eyes. If I was giving star ratings to both of them, I would give The Martian a solid 4.5 stars, and I would give the movie like 4.3. Like it's cutting it close. The 2 things I had issue with the movie was that I believed that the stakes weren't as high as they were in the book for a couple reasons. I'm not really going to get into spoilers of the book or the movie, but there are 2 instances in this book where the main character, Mark Watney, is in a really tough situation, and he has a lot of adversity throughout the book, especially trying to survive on Mars by himself. And they cut a couple of those times where he was really struggling out of the movie, and it kind of diminished how severe his struggle was and kind of took that away from the overall grandness of the experience that is this book. And then they kind of added the stakes that were missing into the end of the movie and tried to make things even grander. Where in the movie Mark was kind of coaxing around the whole time, like just doing what he had to do to survive and didn't really have that much going on, you know, besides the explosion in the head. That's not really that big of a spoiler. It kind of made it out to be generic build up in a movie until the big bad or the final like struggle comes into play at the end. I didn't really think it was necessary. I think if they distributed each of Mark's struggles equally throughout the movie, it would have been a lot better, but that's just how I feel. Also, speaking of Mark as a character, the second thing I took issue with, Matt Damon's Mark Watney just wasn't as funny as the one in the book. Yes, he's a fantastic actor, and he really did play a great role as Mark and did a good job acting as him, but I just feel like there was a lot left out in the movie that couldn't capture the essence that is Mark Watney, and he is so multifaceted and so interesting to read, and he really didn't shine to his fullest potential as he could have in the movie, and just his humor is one thing that really made this book worthwhile, and it wasn't as great of a scale as it was in the movie, in the book. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, overall lesson, I loved the book and I loved the movie. It was really interesting watching them back to back. Like, I started watching the movie like 20 minutes after I finished the book, and that's a really strange experience, and I found that it was not as easy to disassociate the book from the movie as I thought because I read them and watched them so close together, but I eventually decided that this was better in my eyes, but both were great in general. After The Martian, I read Newt's Emerald, which completed the challenge of read a book with a green cover. I listened to the audiobook of Newt's Emerald, and it was okay. I mean, I talked about this again earlier in the week in one of my videos, but I gave Newt's Emerald 3 stars, more like 3.5 stars on Goodreads. It was a Regency era based novel with hints of fantasy woven throughout, and it was a fun adventure, but it wasn't really special, and nothing really stood out to me that really wowed me that I could really talk about. But if you're looking for a light read that's easy and fun and has a little bit of romance, a little bit of magic, not much development in characters, then read this. But if you're looking for an in-depth plot with red herrings and detailed characters, you're not gonna get that with this. Sorry to say. After Newt's Emerald, I read Autobiography by Christina Lauren, and I absolutely loved it. I have to say my favorite book this week is a tie between The Martian and Autobiography. I'm not sure which one I like more. It's really hard because this one was definitely the easiest book to read out of all of them. So that I can say for sure, this was easier than reading The Martian. And on an entertainment level, The Martian I think might have been better, but overall I really loved Autobiography. I think it was very interesting. I would also give this book 4.5 stars rather than 5. I gave it 5 on Goodreads because, you know, they don't have the half-star rating. As I mentioned earlier in the week, Autobiography deals with the issue of a queer teen living in a very religious town and how he struggles with that, being closeted. He's bisexual, Tanner, that's his name, and his love interest, Sebastian, who is a devout Mormon, and he is a writing prodigy. He has a novel coming out, so he's the TA of his novel writing class at Tanner's senior year of high school, and that's where their relationship develops. And it was really interesting seeing the topics that were dealt with and how the author, or authors, because Christina Lauren is actually 2 people, how they really dig deep into these questions of not only what it means to be one of God's children and what he wants for people on earth, but the questions that deals with humanity and what it means to be a good person, and where is the line drawn when it comes to being with the person you love. The only issue I took with this book was the ending. I don't know how I feel about it, specifically the formatting. So throughout the whole book, it's all told in first person from Tanner's perspective, but there are a couple chapters that are told from third person in both Tanner and Sebastian's perspectives, and it kind of threw me off a little bit because it's at the very end and we don't get Tanner's point of view again until the epilogue, and it was kind of strange, and I don't know how I feel about it. I wish there was a better way to get across Sebastian's point of view without having to directly see him. I don't know how that would have worked, but I don't know. It just felt odd to me, and also, yes, I understand Sebastian is in a very tough situation, but he was just so flippant towards Tanner all the time, going back and forth, and he never made a decision until a lot later in the book, and it was really frustrating to read, but I liked it. I really loved Tanner as a character. Sebastian's another story, but it was really good. And finally, the last book I have to show you, of course, is Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie, and this completes the challenge of read a book with a beautiful spine, and I just want to talk about this book in general before getting into the content. It's beautiful. This Barnes & Noble edition, I love it so much, not just the spine, but everything else, the front, the back with the first sentence on it, all children except one grow up, silver papers, a map on the end papers of Neverland, and illustrations throughout. It's absolutely beautiful. I was so excited to read this book and so proud of myself that I finished it in a day yesterday, because I'm gonna be honest, young adult is the easiest genre for me to read. I read it very quickly, as I know many people do, and I'm not used to reading classic novels like this, so it was a big triumph for me to read it as quickly as I did and complete it before Booktube-A-Thon ended, and I'm just so happy I did. Especially since I have such a fondness for Peter Pan in general. I love the Disney movie, I've grown up with it, and to actually have read the novel that the movie is based off of just solidifies myself as a fan. I feel so accomplished and official. This was definitely an interesting read, to say the least. There were a lot of things that I was familiar with within this novel, some things I was very surprised at and kind of freaked out about, but I do have to say, Peter Pan is one of the most complex and multifaceted characters I have ever read, and I really respect him. I might not like him, he's not really a likable character, but he is definitely one that I will think about for a while and keep in my mind. I gave this book a solid 4 out of 5 stars, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And that completes all of the books that I read this Booktube-A-Thon. I can't believe I did it. I'm so happy. This is just such a milestone, and I hope everybody got as much reading done as you wanted. I hope everybody had such a fun time. It was so good talking to everybody as a community, and now since I don't have to constantly read and edit videos anymore, I can sit back and watch some of your videos, because I really have been wanting to, just haven't had the time, so I'm gonna go do that. And yeah, I guess I'll talk to you when I talk to you, and I'll see you sooner rather than later with a new video. Bye!